In 2023, Flyweight is absolutely on fire. You have the title on the line in the co-main event, Moreno taking on Pantoja, and kicking off right down on the bottom of the prelims, we have Japan's Tatsuro Taira, shuffled a little bit from a few weeks ago, supposed to be taking on Cledison Rodriguez. Rodriguez is out, and in on short notice, we have the former combate. You can see it right there, Flyweight champ, it's Edgar Chairez, and if you consider this matchup, Matt, for Chairez, it's an awesome opportunity to be able to fight on a card like this with a lot of your teammates. He's an Entram gym guy. Brandon Moreno spent a lot of time there. He's kind of all over the place for his camps, but you also have Yazmin Jauregui on this card. And so
very promising prospect.
Chairez, it is a 130-pound catchweight that he's kind of found himself in. And if you look at it for Taira, unfortunate that fight from a couple of weeks ago, it shuffles out. The double weight cut always gives you a little bit of pause. We saw Jalga Shumagulov, weight cut, and then Joshua Van. So now when it comes down to this matchup, a guy that Joshua Van fought on his card, it's Edgar Chairez. And if you go down through the performances, you already recognize him from Dana White's Contender Series. He did lose to Clayton Carpenter, but if you watch the first round of that fight, he gave Clayton Carpenter everything he could handle in that first round. Chairez won the first, and the rest of the fight was very competitive. But you watch a guy like Chairez, when he's striking, he's all over the map. He can spin kick like the best of them inside of a phone booth. His hip flexibility is insane to throw.
Yeah.
Some of the kicks that he throws, but the spin back elbows as well. So Chairez definitely posed a tough test for Tatsuro Taira, one of those very highly regarded prospects in the UFC. He's not at that Shavkat level just yet. He's not at the Hamzat level just yet, but he's building a case up through the ranks of 125, and just like fellow undefeated fighter Muhammad Makayev, I mean, these guys under 25, they're absolutely lighting the world on fire.
And I'm oddly excited about this fight. Hopefully you share my enthusiasm in it, because for Tatsuro, we've talked about this a lot, and how odd his card placement has been on all of these. Now, I understand, this is a massively hyped up pay-per-view, so it is a little bit difficult to push some 23-year-old in the flyweight division all of a sudden on like a main card.
All three of his fights that Taira's had in the UFC so far have either been the first fight on the prelims or the second fight on the prelims. However, it's so the Japanese audience can tune in.
That's a very good point, but I still feel like he has garnered the respect of the North American audience at this point, because he's gone out there and he's not just putting on complete performances, he's been quite dominant, and especially once he has been able to get it down to the mat. Now, what we have talked about throughout his entire UFC tenure is the improvements that he tends to be slowly making in his boxing, and really just in his striking in general. He's someone who will fight from kind of an up-high approach. He does like a lot of those clinch takedowns, so I do think that stance helps him kind of blend those two styles together. But for Edgar, I hope you appreciate this. He reminds me of a sparkler. It was recently Canada Day. You had an odd relationship with sparklers. I feel like you got burned by them every single year.
Always grab the end of them.
But that's what I mean. So you would know better than anybody. Once you light a sparkler, can you get it to stop? Not really. And for Edgar Chairez, he does fight a little bit
in water.
Oh, I guess you can put it in water, but he does fight a little bit like a sparkler. Once he gets going, it is very difficult to slow that momentum and slow that pace. And for Tatsuro, if he's not able to complete some of those takedowns, and he finds himself behind those two black lines, just accepting a lot of, not only the combinations, just the absurd blitzes of Edgar in this matchup, I could see him fighting from behind. And to his credit, we haven't really had to see him do that in the UFC up until this point. It's been a lot of one-way traffic. It's been a lot of get that early takedown attempt, have a lot of success grappling. So it will be concerning to see if he's not able to, and if he's just behind the back lines, not getting any takedowns for minutes, rounds on end, I will be curious to see how he deals with just the all-out pressure of a guy like Edgar.
Well, if you only read Taira's Tapology page or Sherdog page and you didn't watch his last fight, there's a reason why I kind of mentioned the teammates at Entram Gym. One of the main teammates of Edgar Chairez is Jesus Aguilar, who's also on this card. Aguilar in the first round against Taira, that was their respective last fights. It was a leg kick from Aguilar that drops Taira. As Taira's getting up, it's a giant guillotine attempt from Aguilar, who holds it for the majority of the round. And then right at the end of the first round, Taira's able to roll it. He's able to get the submission win of his own.
To be fair, though, like Poirier got Khabib in a guillotine for a long time. I just think some of those positions are sticky positions that you can get yourself in. They're not a complete hindrance on your whole game.
He also got hit a fair bit by Carlos Candelario, but if you look at it for Taira on the regional scene with Shuto, he's a champ over there, fought at strawweight, flyweight, and at bantamweight, so a lot of experience there for Taira, but really getting it done, settling into a groove inside of the UFC. Now, when we look at a guy like Edgar Chairez, his last time out, Fury FC, 55, he's going out there, and he's taking on a decent level of competition, but if you do the kind of the deep dive on the record, all 10 of the Chairez wins are by finish. The combined opponent record, 56-29-1. But I mean, the last couple, it was a little bit chintzy.
And so he's got a 5th round loss. He's got decision losses. Like when Edgar is forced to really elongate his game and forced to become that same fighter that he is in those first initial bursts, it is really difficult for him to elongate that success.
And I mean, with Fury, you had a pre-main event promo in cage from Brandon Moreno on Dana White's Contender Series as they're making the walk. Chairez has Moreno in his corner, and there's also Brandon Moreno in a tiny screen giving a breakdown of Edgar Chairez. So a lot of kind of support there from the champ. But my biggest part about this was, Matt, the fight that he had against Vasquez, where poor Frank Collazo, and I'll put it up there, that was the most disgusting non-finish call I've ever seen in my life. And Chairez was struggling in that fight quite a bit. Like, you could have had a few of the rounds very close, but in that, once they got to the title rounds or the championship rounds, it was that triangle choke that was synced in where the guy, Vasquez, is completely out. The referee doesn't see it. The commentators are yelling, stop the fight, stop the fight. And then he goes for an armbar, dislocates his opponent's elbow, and then finally Vasquez wakes himself up and taps out of it. It was wild to see that. Again, you can go back and watch some of the Combate fights, the UWC fights for Chairez. The tape is readily available, but again, when you boil this one down to its simplest, Chairez is a much better striker than Taira. We've seen a lot of those really nice straight shots from Taira. That big right hand that landed against Muyad that he fought over with Shuto, that was his last win before coming into the UFC. That was a great one, but he definitely has gotten better. It's a lot of body locks to trip takedowns from Taira. For Chairez, I mean, the takedown defense is a little bit chintzy. The hands, they drop pretty darn low.
And I do worry that his aggressiveness is something that can bite him in this fight. I think him being aggressive and making Tatsuro uncomfortable is a good game plan, don't get me wrong, but when he rushes his opponents and gets them up against the cage, he will be over-aggressive, and there's normally a side that they can slip out on, and that's something I am concerned about, because if he is just over-committing on a lot of these shots and a lot of these blitzes, you're making Tatsuro's job that much easier of closing the distance and getting it into some of those clinch positions.
So we have a look over on Tapology. Again, this fight on incredibly short notice between these two flyweights. We will consider the old fan vote. I mean, it's a surprise test it is to you. I'm going to say over under 90% Tatsuro Taira in this one.
I'll say under, but it'll be a big favorite.
It's way over. 702 total votes, 97% Taira, 82% by submission for the 3% that have Chairez, 50% by decision. Matt, is Tatsuro Taira the guy?
I think he is going to get the win. It's nothing against Chairez, and I think he can have a really successful, maybe not crazy successful career. I think he can have a really memorable one. I do think his fighting style is one of those fight of the night must-see kind of guys, but I do worry that he could kind of fall into a Marco Polo Reyes kind of category to where it is a lot of these action fights. It is a lot of one-for-ones. Again, I think his striking can make Tatsuro uncomfortable, but I do worry about how much success he can have with it. Can he make those combinations last for not only 3, 4, 5 minutes, but 6, 7, 8, carry it later into the fight? So for those reasons, I've got Tatsuro.
Chairez has some bantamweight experience on the record. He had it with UWC. He's trying to defend takedowns, grabbing the cage, and the referee's just going to slap that hand out of there. He's also had Jason Herzog as a referee in a fight that he took against Hernandez. That was that 130-pound catchweight. I'll go Tatsuro Taira, but it's probably one of the least confident picks on this card, and everybody's going to laugh at that because he's a giant prospect, but Edgar Chairez could be that guy that really just upsets the apple cart when it comes to this division because he is so powerful with these strikes and he could catch Taira just looking in a mirror, waiting. So we'll see how this one plays out, Matt. I think it's going to be a great fight at a catch weight of 130 pounds. Both of us with Japan's Tatsuro Taira. A lot of big-time matchups on this card. You're not going to want to miss any of them. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.